Hi guys, welcome to Main Street festivities in my December daily. This particular day we went down to our main street, which has kind of an old-fashioned theme, and we did some shopping. We brought the dog, and we just had a really nice time with everyone. So it was me, my daughter, and my husband, and the dog. And we spent quite a few hours down there. It was really nice. The weather was absolutely perfect. The weather has not been very cold around here. It's starting to get cold now, but it hasn't been cold. It's unseasonably warm actually. And so we were able to go down with just some really light jackets. And my daughter I don't think even wore a coat. So yeah, so that's kind of what we did on this particular day. So I took quite a few pictures. I didn't put all the pictures that I took in this on these pages, but I did pick out my favorite couple. And I'm going to be working on the picture of me, my daughter, and the dog in the left-hand side, and then the dog on the right. And then I will have another picture later on the back 2 pages of some more. So I'm really just doing one picture per page, which is fine. I have a lot of pages in this album. That shouldn't be an issue. So right now I'm just working on this really pretty book page. It's a Christmas Carol book page and it's very, very fragile. So I wanted to make sure I put something along the edge to kind of stabilize that paper. So when you flipped it, it didn't rip the paper because it was super brittle. So I ended up taking some of the paper from the 49th and Main collection and using my paper punch and just punching out that kind of scallopy, doily kind of edge. And then I just felt like I didn't like that gap between the scallop and the picture. So I ended up cutting a strip of this vellum that looks like a music sheet, and I wanted to give a little bit of texture to that, so I'm just ripping the one side. And then I have that little sprig of kind of spruce with a pine cone there just to add a little extra there to the corner. Again, it's just adding some stability to this piece of paper because the paper is so brittle. And I like how that's looking. And now I'm going to see where I'm going to put the picture of the dog. And then I also have that label and the holly there that I connected together. I kind of nestled that label inside of the holly and I like how that looks. Now, because it is vellum, I like to use this Beacon 3-in-1 a lot more than I like using like a liquid glue or a tape runner. It doesn't show as much, and also where I'm gluing it, it's going to be covered up by the red scallopy strip. But still, when I use vellum, I like to use this Beacon. It seems to just lay flatter, it doesn't curl up the vellum like a liquid glue would, and the adhesive looks a lot more transparent, I guess. I'm just going to ink up this because you're going to see it from both sides, and I'm just going to use the same glue here since I had it out and ready. I'm going to glue that down, covering up that edge where I added the glue to the vellum piece. And then I will add on, I think, that little sprig right there. Just using some vintage photo to distress that one. I'm pretty much used vintage photo on everything that I've been adding to this album so far. And it's just the, what is it called? It's the Tim Holtz vintage photo, but it's the Distress Oxide ink. It just has a softer look to it, and I like that one. So I wanted to add more texture here, so I'm going to end up punching some holes, and I'm going to do some hand stitching with some green embroidery floss, and I'm just doing some X's, just going up the side, nothing too fancy, but I really like how this looks, and I like how it adds that extra kind of texture, dimension to the layout, and just a more handmade touch to it. And it just kind of looks cool because I'm kind of connecting the two pieces here with that X pattern. So now everything's all stitched up. Just going to tie that off in a knot, and then I will cover up these knots so they don't get messed up or get in the way of the stuff that I'm going to put on the other page. I'm going to end up covering that up later on with something else, but right now I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing, so I added just a little bit of um, paper scrap to the knots to make sure everything stays in place. And that's just some art glitter glue that I'm using there. And I use that packaging paper that's really thin because I didn't want to add any more bulk to it since the little knots are already kind of bulky. Once it's all glued down, I'm going to turn it over, figure out what I'm going to do with this picture. I did want to mount it. I pretty much have been mounting all my photos. I just like the look and I like the added color to it. So I just add a really thin border around it and just use my scissors to cut that out. And I'm liking how that's looking, so I'll end up putting a little bit of ink around it, gluing that down. Again, adding a lot of adhesive just to make sure it stays on since these aren't page protectors. And then I'll add a little bit of glue to this label and that will go in that bottom right-hand corner. And I'm using that little dot runner just to get some of the more tight spaces that would be covered up too much with the bigger adhesive. The stuff that's in the 3M tape gun, It's more of like a tape adhesive, so it doesn't have like the little dots, which is fine if you're using like a bigger surface. But if you're trying to get into intricate spaces, then you're going to have a lot of webbing and overflow of the glue. So I like to use my little dot runner because it just puts little dots, and it will only put dots where you want it, and it won't like overhang the edge very much. So that is what I choose to use for those more detailed pieces. So now I'm working on the right hand or left hand side where the bigger photo, it's a 5x7 photo of me and my daughter with the dog under a little archway. I'm trying to figure out a red color that I can use to mount this that will look nice. And I am picking this one. And it's just going to be a little bit of color. It's not going to be very intense because I am just putting a small border around it. But I wanted to still pop off the page a bit more than it does without the border. So I'm going to glue that down. And then I'm going to do something different on this photo. I don't know if I do it right here after I mount it, but I'm going to add some tissue paper. I just wanted some extra texture to it. And I end up doing kind of a fun technique where I kind of put down the tissue paper and kind of make it look kind of messy. And you'll see that here in a little bit. And it was kind of just by happenstance. I was going to make just a regular border of tissue paper around it, but I ended up deciding to do something a little more different. It was kind of how it was cutting out and stuff and how it was laying. And I thought, oh, this might be a different way of doing it. So you're going to see here, I'm going to tear it out because I wanted that kind of torn edge as opposed to like a straight edge that you cut with the scissors. I wanted to look kind of more fluffy since it was this tissue paper. But you're going to see here in a minute, depending on how you rip your tissue paper, where the grain is going in the tissue paper, it doesn't rip super well. So when I tried to do it this way, you can see that it just rips like super crazy. So I decided just to hand rip it. And of course, when you do that, it doesn't go very straight. But I thought I'll use this as an opportunity to make something kind of cool. I'm gonna do the same thing here. I was able to get a little bit better here than I did on the top, but still not super great. So I decided that since I had this stuff here, I'm just gonna kind of smush it down and flip it over like that, just using a little bit of adhesive. And then in a little bit, I'm going to use some distress ink to distress it and then add some glitter to it. And I just really like how the look is. I kind of just looks more vintagey vibe to it, and I just thought it was looked nice. So that's what I did. Just kind of worked out that way kind of thing. And just adding some glue, I want to make sure these wrinkles and stuff kind of stay the way I have them. So I'm just going in there very carefully and adding a little bit of glue and then folding that tissue paper over. The nice thing about tissue paper is it kind of lays wherever you put it once you glue it down. So it holds a kind of its shape, I guess, if you will, with the wrinkles. So just, yeah, gluing it all down, kind of mushing it down, making sure it looks a little grungy there. And because I want it more grungy, I will be adding that distress ink around the edges. Just more that vintage photo. I'm trying to get it on not only the edges, but also some of the wrinkles and things like that, so it makes them a little bit more pronounced. And then here I'm going to add some stickles. It's kind of a coppery bronze color. Just putting a couple dots down and then just pushing it down with my fingers. I'm going to do that in the top and the bottom part of the piece. And then because I like what that stickles look like, I'm going to end up adding the stickles on a couple more places, and I'll show you that in a second here when I bring the book back over. So I have those kind of ticket shapes that I'm going to be adding it on the corners. So I'm just doing in the top left and the bottom right of both the red, and I think I'm going to do the same corners on the green one, or maybe it's the opposite. I don't quite remember off the top of my head. We'll see here in a second though. Oh, yeah, bottom right and top left. And I'm going to have to let this dry for a while. Stickles takes a bit to dry, so I just leave that sitting over there. I'm going to add some of the same stickles on these little pine cones because it's kind of a brownish copper color. I thought that would look cute as an accent over here. And then I also have red stickles here that I thought would look nice. These are a little holly berries, so I'm adding a little bit of dots here and there to this die cut. Again, just to bring the sparkle across the page, I thought it looked a little nicer. And then this is a pine cone, so I'm adding some of that brown stickles here. Then I decided I was going to go and use these green distress stickles, but they were pretty messy. So you're going to see I'm using my finger to kind of wipe off some of it. It was oozing out very, very fast. And I was kind of making a mess. So I had to wipe it off a couple times and then reapply it, but it ended up working out okay. Probably wouldn't have done that again with those particular stickles if I knew it was going to spit out like that, but it ends up working out in the end. Now I'm going to stamp a little sentiment on the little label by the dog. Just says fa la la. I thought it needed something there. And then I'm going to add his name above where I have fa la la. And I'm just going to handwrite his name. You can see where I put it, Indy, right there. And now I'm going to glue down this photo on the left-hand side, making sure I have enough adhesive. And of course, I have no adhesive in the middle because when I put this down, I didn't even think to put adhesive in the middle. So I think you might see in a little bit that I'm going to take my glue bottle and just kind of squish some glue between the paper and the photo there. Just trying to figure out where this is going to lay. I want to make sure I lay it, for whatever reason, exactly where I wanted it. So I use a little pencil to make sure I lay it out perfect. That is probably unnecessary. It's just my, I don't know, I don't have OCD, but it's like my thing. Sometimes I want it to be exactly perfect, which is silly, but that's just what I do sometimes. So sometimes I take longer to do things just because I'm trying to make it exactly the way it was before. Now I'm just going to glue down this die cut piece, again, just using this Beacon 3-in-1 glue and adding it right there. I really like that Merry Christmas little pine cone thing. I think it's super cute. So now I'm going to go and use that glue, like I said, and kind of smush that down so that the picture doesn't fall off that page later on, because the tissue paper is pretty um, delicate and it could rip off very easily. And then I wanted to do a bit more over here, so I decided that I'm going to pull out some material. I am going to rip this, and I wanted to do kind of like a pleated fabric thing over here, but I end up using it down by the ticket, so you'll see that in a little bit. I was just trying to figure out what I want to do, kind of playing with this, making it a bit thinner. I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to make kind of a ruffle, and then ultimately add it down there by the little tickets and the Merry Christmas. It just wasn't working for me. I tried a bunch of different ways, and I just wasn't happy with it. It just looked awkwardly placed. So I thought, oh, I like it down here, so that's where it goes. And since it's fabric, I do like that Beacon adhesive for the fabric, and that sticks super well. Still wanted to do something there by the snowflake, so I'm going to take two labels and kind of stack them on top of each other. One has a little, I think, bells on it, and the other one's just plain, but I'm just going to layer them. One's going to go up underneath the circle, and then one's going to go on top. Going to do a little inking around it and just glue it down. I didn't need to write anything on it. I just wanted something to kind of fill in that blank space. I felt it was just a little bit funny just sitting there, so that's what I'm going to do. I trimmed a little piece off that label. I'm going to end up using that over on the photo of my dog, because I didn't want to waste it, and since it was a small piece, I figured it was going to get lost pretty easily, so I'm going to add that there by the snowflake. And then I'm going to put it right there, just tuck it in. All right, that's pretty much this layout. Now I'm going to work on the back pages, or the second set of pages. This is a picture of my daughter and the dog, and I want to do something fun on this one. I wanted to put it in a pocket. I don't think I realized that when I first started, but that's kind of what I ended up doing. I wanted to cover up that stitching because it just didn't look very nice, and I just thought it would look better with it being covered. So I was going to put this piece of paper just directly on the stitching, but then I decided to make it into a pocket. I just thought that would be fun. And then I'm going to mount and put my journaling on the picture of my dog and my daughter. So I'm just inking around the edges, and you're going to see that I'll glue on 3 sides of this strip. So here I'm deciding what I want to do, and then at first I thought, oh, I'm just going to put the picture up underneath the strip and just glue it, but then I ultimately decided just to make it something that pulls out. I just wanted something interactive. I thought it'd be fun that way. So just marking it so I know where to cut it off at, and here's where I decide to do it as a little pocket. And I thought this tuck was a little tiny, so you're going to see later on that I'm going to add another more sturdy piece of cardstock, because this is just copy paper. I'll add a sturdier piece of cardstock to the edge so that, one, it's a little wider because that is a very narrow or shallow pocket, and then 2, just that way it has more stability. So that will be a little bit in a little bit. So I like how that's looking. And now I'm thinking about how I'm going to mount that photo. So I'm going to mount the photo on to this red paper first. And then I'm going to mount it on to some packaging brown paper. And I'm going to kind of do a little treatment on the brown paper, so you're going to see that here in a second. I just felt like that looked kind of plain, so I wanted to do something more. So here's that brown packaging paper. This is just packaging paper I think I got probably in a Chewy's box or some other packaging. And I'm trying to figure out here what I want to do. I thought it was going to be kind of boring, so I end up trimming it out. I'm using the photo as kind of a guide for how big I need to trim out this piece of paper. And then I thought it looked a little plain. I wanted to use a snowflake stencil on it, and you'll see that I do use that, but it just doesn't turn out very nice because you just can't see it. It's not dark enough. I could have used a different color, but I also wanted to journal on it, and I didn't want it to be too bold. So I ended up trying my vintage photo. It just wasn't looking the way I wanted it to. So you'll see here in a little bit that I am going to use this modeling paste. So this modeling paste has been in my stash for quite some time. It's pretty thick, but this is a really, really, really fine stencil. So you're going to see that it doesn't go down perfect, but I'm okay with that. It's fine. And you're going to see that I'm just going to push this down. And I wanted to use this as the back. I was going to put the photo on the other side of it and then use this as the back. But I ended up not liking that, and it just was too stark. I don't know, it just wasn't going with the vibe that I wanted. So I end up using this to put the photo on top of. So you'll see that in a little bit. And it just peeks out the edges. You really don't see it much. So this is probably something I didn't have to do, but I just really wanted that extra texture in here. And it ends up turning out fine. You can still notice that there is the texture there. It's just not very, in your face. I think if it was a more like thicker stencil without such fine detail, it would look nicer. But because the snowflakes are so delicate, it just wanted to smush up underneath them very easily. So now I really like how that's looking, and I can see here that, oh, you know what, it's really not going to fit in this pocket very well. I need to kind of expand that pocket a bit more so things fit a bit more. So you'll see that here next. And this is just a branding strip from the 49th and Main collection. 49th and Main? Yes, I think that's the right name. I'm just going to trim that off so it fits in the pocket, and I'm just going to add a little glue to the edge and then tuck that up underneath the green. Just trimming off the corners. I thought it looked a little bit too, I don't know, abruptly ending. So trimming off those edges kind of gives it a little bit more of a finished look. So here I'm adding just a little bit of glue so everything sticks together. And then I'm going to tuck that photo in. I am going to add a little tab to the right-hand side of the photo. I can't remember exactly when I do that, but that's going to be added as well. Not for any other reason than just to kind of decorate it. I mean, you can tell that it needs to come out of the pocket if you want to like look at it, but I thought it looked cute. It was an opportunity for me to embellish, so I would, or I did. This is some green sari silk that I just felt like something else was needed there at the bottom. Plus, I was worried again about the integrity of the paper. So I'm just going to add this down as a little decorative element. It's going to go on the bottom of this page, and then I'm going to tuck it up around to the other side where the picture of the dog is. And then I'm going to glue that down. Again, it's just for texture and then really just more stability for this really brittle page. So yeah, I'm going to kind of keep that wrinkled look to it. I'm not going to try to flatten out too much because I like how that kind of looks all scruffy. And then just kind of glue everything down. Here's where I'm going to do that tab. There's a perfect spot where it says Christmas, so I'm going to punch it out right there. That worked out beautifully. And then I'm going to punch another color, I think, for the other side of the tab, or maybe I'm just going to, no, I'm going to keep it like this, I think. So I'm just using my Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher to punch this on, or to staple it on, I should say. I think that looks cute. I'm happy with that one. So now I'm going to start working on the right-hand side of the page. I have this picture of the horse. Down in the main street that we have, there I have horse-drawn carriages. We didn't take one, but I just think they're really pretty, so I definitely wanted to get a picture of the horse. And I'm going to end up just using this gesso to kind of mute down the table of contents that's on that page. I mean, I didn't mind the writing, but it was just too in your face, and I wasn't able to really like take my eye off, if you will. So this just kind of helps push it into the background a bit more, but doesn't take away the fact that there is writing there, because I did like that. I just didn't want it to be such in your face kind of thing. So once I do this gesso on here, it will dry a little bit less opaque, and I'm going to take some tissue paper that I printed on a music. I think it's a Little Town of Bethlehem, I think is what I did. Maybe we'll see in a second, but I'm going to add that on top of this because I just wanted that muted look. I thought it would look fun, and so I just kind of used some matte medium to add that on. Yeah, A Little Town of Bethlehem. So I just ran it through my printer. I just made sure I printed, or sorry, taped on all the sides or three of the sides. Then it ran through my printer beautifully. I didn't have any problems. And I just used the normal setting. I didn't use a draft setting or anything like that, and it worked out just nicely. So that is going to be torn out all around the edges, and then we will use that matte medium to glue everything down. And I want to distress the edges just a little bit, so I'm going to do that. This matte medium, unfortunately, is still it's okay. It's a little bit thick. I don't use like mediums and things like that very often. I used to a lot more, and they just dry up so fast. And even though it has that kind of seal on it, it still is pretty goopy. I'm pretty sure when I first got it, it was much thinner. I probably can add a little bit of water to it and thin it out, but I didn't feel like messing with it, and I didn't want the page to be too wet, so I ended up just using it as is. And then I'm just carefully taking this tissue paper and then making sure it adheres down to the page. And like I said, you can still see the writing from the table of contents underneath it, but I kind of like that look and it just kind of puts it in the background. It just gives some more dimension and texture, I guess, if you will. It's like visual texture more than like physical texture, but I just really like how that looks and I think it turned out nice. So now I am just gluing that down around the edge. I thought it'd be nice to have that edge there. And then I'm going to use my heat tool and just dry that all up. And now I'm going to add the photo back of the horse-drawn carriage. And I'm just going to do some collaging, I guess, if you will, on the side. I'm going to mount this photo first, but I'm just going to take some die cuts and things like that and place them down. Not any particular reason for any of the die cuts or anything like that, just to add like kind of like a little scene, if you will, to the page, just to give it some interest because I had a lot of blank space at the bottom and I didn't have a lot of journaling or need any journaling down there. I'm putting all the journaling on the picture of my daughter and dog, so I didn't really need that space for journaling and it just looked too blank even though it does have the music page. I thought I thought that it would look nice with that just kind of scene at the bottom, I guess. So you'll see me adding like a Christmas tree and a wreath and things like that here in a second. Kind of going through my stash trying to figure out what's going to work the best. I end up settling on this wreath, and then, like I said, there's going to be a tree. I thought I was going to use a Happy Christmas, but I like this tree better. And then I'm going to add another piece kind of to hold on the bottom, just to kind of make it have a space or a shelf to sit on the tree, because it looked a little floating right now. So you'll see I'll pull out that, and that's just a little red scallop. And I really like this Believe in Magic of Christmas, but I think I end up using something different. No, I do end up using that. So just going through, I wanted to have some word at the top. So I picked this counting the days and then the little 2 for 25 cents. I thought that was just a nice little red pop there that brought the red from the little border that I put underneath the tree over to the top. And then I found this Mary. I thought that was cute. So I thought, oh, I'll just put that on the picture of my daughter and my dog and stick that back in. So I really like how this is looking on the right-hand side, but I also want to add some more texture. So I am going to pull out some cheesecloth and put that up underneath both the tree and the wreath. So I'm just haphazardly kind of just chopping it up, putting some pieces that just kind of add that texture. And then I'll end up gluing everything down. I did want this piece to kind of hang over the edge just slightly, so it does hang over the edge of the page just a little bit, nothing too much. And then once I'm happy with the placement, I'll glue everything down. And so I'm getting so much at the end of this. I have about 3 more minutes of the video left, but I wanted to take the time to thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope you guys are enjoying the video. Let me know where you're at with your December daily. If you're doing December daily, leave that in the comments below. Love to hear what you guys are doing. I'm definitely very, very far behind, but I am completely okay with that. It will get done when it gets done. I'm just trying to enjoy the process. So, but yeah, let me know in the comments below what you guys are up to. If you finish your December daily, or if you're working on another project, or if you moved on from Christmas, because my goodness, you're done with Christmas, or what have you. Mhm. If you did like the video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, I'd love to have you as a subscriber. So that would be awesome as well. So here I'm just gluing everything down, nothing too exciting. Using my art glitter glue here to make sure everything sticks very nicely. And then I'm going to use my Scotch ATG gun for the rest of it. I wanted to make sure you could see that, "O Little Town of Bethlehem," so I made sure the horse-drawn carriage was below that. And then I'm using my Beacon 3-in-1. It didn't seem like the art glitter glue was holding that very well, or at least not quickly, so I used the Beacon 3-in-1 that just holds much faster. Oh, and I was just looking there actually to see if it was archive or acid free. I couldn't remember if the glue was acid free. It is actually. So it should be archival safe. I was going to put it on that photo, so I wanted to check. Not that it matters because I've been putting that glue on photos, I don't know, throughout the book already, but I figured, oh, I'll just look at that. I was curious. So now everything's glued down. I'm going to show you a quick look at everything, and that's it. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Like I said, hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, leave those in the comment section below, and I will be back hopefully again soon. Bye.